political leaders here in Germany are weighing their options after the far-right Alternative for Germany party took first place in a state election on Sunday. The AfD won the vote in the eastern state of Thuringia, despite being classified as extremist by German authorities. The AfD won almost a third of Thuringia's votes and came a close second in the neighbouring state of Saxony. But its chances of governing are uncertain, as all other parties have refused to work in coalition with it. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, whose Social Democrats fared poorly in both votes, urged all parties to form coalitions without right-wing extremists.
The far-right AfD may have emerged as the biggest winner in two regional elections, but will likely end up in opposition. All mainstream parties have pledged to uphold a firewall against entering a coalition with the anti-migration party in both Thuringia and Saxony. But although a clear majority didn't cast their vote for the AfD and don't want to see it govern, some say it has a mandate to form a coalition.
In certain matters, you just have to come together in the interest of democracy.
The
share of votes is simply too big. At some point, you have to ensure that people see their choices being reflected. I think they should be given the chance to work together with everyone. Only then can you say whether they're up to it or not. By denying them that chance by claiming to be too good, you actually end up elevating them, and you shouldn't do that.
But there is concern about the rise of the far right.
The fact that the AfD has done so well, especially in rural areas, is concerning.
I think it's basically right not to work with them. But it's hard to see a government being formed at all then.
It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't know what will become of Germany.
And while the AfD say they have a right to govern in state-level coalitions, the parties running the national government are under pressure. They barely managed to scrape 10% of the vote combined. With just a year to go before federal elections, these results are likely to increase the tensions felt by Olaf Scholz's already divided coalition.
Daniela Schwarzer is with the Bertelsmann Stiftung and is one of Germany's leading experts on European and international politics. Welcome to DW. Could we start by explaining to our international audience why these two state elections are being viewed with such horror by the leaders of Germany's national governing parties?
It's a historical first in post-war Germany that a far-right party has scored so well that it came in first in regional elections, gets roughly a third of the seats, and in a second region, it comes in second and also sits in parliament with a very big parliamentary group. Why is this important? First of all, because it indicates shifts in the German party system that some of our neighbors have gone through years earlier, and Germany always seemed to be a country where the far right can maybe rise to 13 or 15%, but not to a third of the vote. And here we are. This has happened in two regions, and the question now is, does this have implications for the federal elections, which will only happen in 1 year time?
OK, we'll come to that. Let's talk first of all, though, about the rise of the AfD in Germany, and then we'll talk about the rise of right-wing populism across Europe. But here in Germany, why are so many Germans looking to the AfD to say, yes, them? Because these results didn't come out of nowhere, did they?
Yes, that's true. AfD has built its base over years, and opinion poll data for Eastern German regions had indicated for a while that they can come out very strongly, and indeed there was a risk that they would come first, and they did in one of the regions. Now, what did they do? First of all, they offered a party platform which speaks to the fears of many people in Eastern Germany, picking up socioeconomic concerns, picking up a certain criticism of the federal government's green transition policy that many Germans feel puts them under pressure but doesn't really support them. And AfD actually denies the need to implement a very engaged policy to fight climate change. And then AfD also, and this is not a policy issue, but a question of presence and anchorage within society, has built social structures in municipalities in Eastern Germany that really kind of crowded out, that maybe didn't have a sports club, didn't have a youth center, and they helped set up structures. They showed big presence, and so people felt they are close to us. They are, they understand what bothers us, and they are part of our community. And so we saw those very strong results yesterday. But this doesn't mean that this will translate automatically to a similar result on the federal level, because structural differences between Eastern Germany and Western Germany really remain. Also questions of political culture. The German mainstream parties have a deep anchorage in Western Germany, didn't have the historical break that they had in Eastern Germany, where for several decades there was a socialist regime with no free democracy.
Right.
And so there are differences which play out.
Okay, and we've seen the right-wing populist parties making significant inroads into mainstream politics across Europe: Italy, France, the UK, Sweden, Finland. The list seems endless, and migration is a common factor there and here in Germany. But what you're talking about there is not just migration, but the fact that these right-wing parties, these insurgent parties, seem to root themselves in communities.
Yes, absolutely. But migration, of course, is an important issue as well. And not only for AfD, but also for the far-left party BSW, which came out of nothing and jumped to 16%. And then also the mainstream parties have really hardened their positions on immigration, on sending home non-legal immigrants, and so on. And interestingly, the fact that the European Union's migration policy really got tougher over the past month, and also Germany, the government coalition at this point, has more restrictive positions on immigration, did not change much to the appeal of the far right's position on immigration in regions where the actual number of immigrants is not particularly high, and definitely not higher than in Western Germany.
Okay. Now, you posted on X today, you believe that this far-right surge in this eastern corner of Germany could also impact German foreign policy. I think you were sort of hinting at that when you talked about the EU and Germany toughening their stance. But I'm guessing that there's also more than just migration that you're talking about.
Yes, that is true. So what we have seen in the two Eastern German regions yesterday is that two parties scored fairly well that criticize the federal government's support for Ukraine and take a much softer stance on Russia, and actually argue that rather than delivering weapons to Ukraine, the country which really needs to defend itself into a completely illegal aggression and invasion, that rather than supporting Ukraine, the German government should promote peace, meaning should push Ukraine towards negotiations with Russia. And interestingly, both the far left and the far right try to position themselves as the parties that will bring peace back to our neighborhood. And of course, completely ignoring the fact in their rhetoric that it's Russia's aggression on Ukraine, and also not mentioning clearly that Russia is a completely unreliable negotiation partner at this point. So they seem to have an easy fix. Don't deliver weapons, peace will come back. And this is, of course, attractive to some people who are, after years of support for Ukraine feel a certain fatigue, in particular those who feel they are not being treated well and they feel that their socio-economic future is endangered. This argument, which is really a very, very difficult and bad one, this argument that it's easy to bring peace to Ukraine seems to be quite attractive to some, and this may put pressure on the German government, in particular in a situation where the US may downscale its support for Ukraine. Then a bigger burden will be on Europeans, and a public which is faced with an option that there's an easy peace deal, of course, will be more critical of that support.